Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a little bit of time since we've gotten out some new polls for the 2020 Democratic primary. Really, we haven't gotten all that much in new data ever since that Emerson poll came out last week. That showed Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders tied atop the field at 27% of support, followed by Elizabeth Warren, who was at 20%. Now, a number of days have gone by since that point in time, but we finally got a couple of new polls out today. The updated weekly morning consult numbers, which is painting a really positive picture, specifically for Bernie Sanders, while Elizabeth Warren has been fading back. But then we also got an interesting new poll out of the state of New Hampshire, a Suffolk University poll that had a relatively strong sample size for the type of polls that we typically get out of New Hampshire are generally lower in terms of the number of respondents, but that one was up to 500, so some interesting data coming out of that one, and that's how we'll close out this one. If you're interested in looking at all of this data for yourself, I'll have links posted to these articles down in the video description. So starting off here with this week's National Morning Consult numbers, we can see Joe Biden taking a little bit of a step back. In general, in these morning consult polls, Biden has been doing a little bit better than what he's doing in a lot of the other national polls. We're seeing that he still leads the way at 30% of support, but there is some big changes once we get over to the early primary states, and we'll get to that after running through these national numbers. So we also see a little bit more strength from Bernie Sanders, bumping up to a much stronger second place where he now has a 6-point lead over Elizabeth Warren. Sanders at 21%, followed by Warren, who's back down to 15 points. And in third place, Pete Buttigieg continuing to show a little bit more strength where he's up to 9% in fourth place, followed by Kamala Harris at 5%, Andrew Yang at 4%, and then you have Michael Bloomberg, Cory Booker, and Tulsi Gabbard each at 2 percentage points respectively in a tie for seventh place. And now we're going to take a look at the early primary states. This includes Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, as well as South Carolina. And we can see some more strength from Bernie Sanders. I believe he's gained around 5 points in the early primary states since where we were last week, which is a really good sign for him. In contrast, Biden taking a little bit of a step back, now very competitive with Sanders towards the top of those early states where he's at 26%. Elizabeth Warren doing a little bit better in the early states than what her national numbers are saying, where she's at 18 points of support. And then the outlier here, clearly Tom Steyer. He's pumped in millions of dollars into these early states to have success, and it's showing in the polls. It's a big-time outlier for him where he's doing a lot better in these early states than his national numbers, where he's still down typically around 1%. But we see in those 4 early states, he's up to 9%. Pete Buttigieg in fifth at 8%, Yang at 4%. Michael Bloomberg, Kamala Harris, and Amy Klobuchar each at 2 percentage points, respectively. So the general trend line that we've been seeing over the past week or so is Bernie Sanders gaining some momentum while Elizabeth Warren, I think it's pretty clear at this point, she is starting to recede and take a bit of a step back. So going down and taking a look at some more of these numbers, we can see last week Biden was at 32. He's down to 30 this week. So a little bit of a change there. Sanders went from 20 points up to 21, so gaining 1 percentage point. But this is a troubling sign for Elizabeth Warren, where she was in a solid second place there for around a month at 21% of support. But over the past month or so, she's dipped about 6 points. Now she's down to 15% of support. And it seems like that's been transitioning over to Pete Buttigieg, who's now up to 9% nationally, where he was at just 5 points a little over a month ago. Scrolling down and looking at the second choice among Biden supporters, it's Bernie at 28 points, Warren at 22. The second choice among Sanders supporters has Warren at 31 and Biden at 27. The second choice among Warren supporters is Sanders at 31 and Biden at 20. And these are much stronger second choice numbers that we see for Sanders from Biden supporters as well as Warren supporters. So another positive trend line that we're seeing from the Vermont senator. And then Buttigieg, second choice, is Biden at 25, Warren at 24, and Sanders nowhere in sight, with Harris supporters have Warren at 23, Biden at 21, and Sanders at 15. And then going down, taking a look at net favorability, where Sanders is just crushing it here by quite a big margin in contrast to a lot of these Democratic hopefuls, but overall the best positive to the net favorable, where he has 75% favorable to 19% unfavorable. Biden, he's been weakening with his favorability recently, as we see him down to 68% favorable to 23% unfavorable. Warren at 63 favorable to 19% unfavorable. And kind of interesting here, Michael Bloomberg, almost an even split between favorable to unfavorable. And that's indicative of likely to be a tough situation for Bloomberg as he throws his hat in the ring. If you have 30% of people who are unfavorable in only +1 to the positive in a Democratic primary, that means you're probably not going to have an overwhelming amount of success. We'll see what he's capable of doing. So in terms of this week's morning consult numbers, there's still positives that Joe Biden can take away, the fact that he's still leading the overall pack, but trending backwards in those early states where Bernie Sanders is showing positive trend lines both in the early states as well as his national numbers as a whole. And then the other poll that I wanted to touch on is a Suffolk University poll along with the Boston Globe, and it had 500 respondents looking at the key early primary of New Hampshire, and I don't like that they have undecided here as an option because that ends up leading the pack here at 21%. Bernie Sanders, the first candidate that's leading the way at around 16 points, Warren at around 14 points in second place, and this is by and large, for the most part, between Sanders and Warren, unchanged from the Suffolk University poll that we had back in August. But the big gainer here is Buttigieg, where over the past few months, he's gained 7 points. Now he's up into third place at over 13%, but Biden receding significantly, down 9 points from the prior Suffolk University poll from New Hampshire, where he's in fourth place at just 12%. And this is a very concerning trend for Biden. If right out of the gate, and we see this in a lot of polls, if he gets fourth place in both Iowa and New Hampshire, it will be a massive black eye for his campaign. There's going to be a ton of negative headlines and press coverage on the mainstream media and from political pundits. And I'm not sure if Biden's campaign will be able to survive that type of situation, but clearly Biden needs to be putting more work into trying to have more success in these early states because nationally he still is the front runner when you're taking a look at the entire 50 states, but it is concerning for him that he's receding a bit in Iowa and New Hampshire specifically. So those are the two polls that I wanted to touch on. And again, if you want to look at all the data for yourself, I'll have links posted down in the video description. Consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, and I hope to see you guys back here for my next video.